Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, continuing our focus on the fight against corruption. Let me take you up on your opening statements where you did talk about former president sacking the CBN governor, but it was actually a suspension. And so the argument at that time was, some lawyers did say, there's nowhere in the law that says the president cannot suspend the CBN governor. And that suspension was predicated on a report of the Financial Reporting Council. I did the same thing.
There was no provision for suspension, even in the CBN Act. But somebody went to court to say the president could do it if he could sack. Why can he not suspend? But you know, let me just say this. I agree with my colleagues that there's nothing so special about one individual. For me, the president can also look for any other person to run the EFCC or any other organization.
So why are we chasing
Before
shadows?
Magu, there were people who were running the EFCC.
So why are we chasing this path now? Why do you think that the government is chasing after this path?
Yeah, I think the president and the Senate will have to meet and sort out this matter so that the country can move on. But as far as the law is concerned, what I think and what I'm praying for is the courage either on the part of the Senate, not just because of beyond Magu, or the executive, either the National Assembly or the executive, to file an action before the Supreme Court. Because either can do that for the proper interpretation of the EFCC Act vis-a-vis the Constitution. But for now, it does appear that the presidency or the executive has taken a decision. And what would resolve this matter ultimately is a judicial resolution. But having regard to relevant decisions of the High Court, for now, it does appear that by the combined effect of Sections 5 and 171 of the Constitution, you cannot fault the decision of the president either to retain Magu as acting chairman or appointing in the substantive capacity.
So how long is he going to act for now that
again this is where we are. Again, for instance, Section 230 of the Constitution is specific as to the duration of the acting capacity of the Chief Justice of the country. But in this case, neither the Constitution nor the Interpretation Act has set a limit to the acting capacity of the EFCC chairman. But what he cannot do is to act beyond 4 years, which is the normal tenure of somebody who has been appointed in a substantive capacity.
So what must be done in this situation?
I beg your pardon?
What must be done now in this situation where you have the Constitution, Section 171, as against the EFCC Act?
No, the Constitution takes precedence. And Section 171, subsection 1 says, the power to appoint somebody to act or to hold a post shall vest in the president. And the positions enumerated by the Constitution in subsection 2 of 171 are the secretary to the government, the head of service, permanent secretary, and heads of extra ministerial departments of the government. There is also the position of subsection 4 goes down to say, with respect to the appointment of ambassadors and heads of our missions, the president shall seek, they cannot be appointed unless there is confirmation by the Senate. But with respect to other positions, there's nothing about, the Constitution does not talk of confirmation. Therefore, the express mention of one thing is the exclusion of another.
Well, this takes away from the EFCC Act.
No, the EFCC Act
that ought to be operating almost autonomous.
No, the EFCC Act has to operate subject to the provisions of the Constitution. And Section 1, subsection 3 of the Constitution says, if there is any other law that is inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution, that other law will be set aside. So that's the position of the law.
But isn't this an afterthought? Because why did the presidency send his name to the Senate in the first place?
Well, I think, for me, I think it was an error. All of us had thought Section 2, subsection 3 was the prevailing law. But on reading the Constitution, vis-a-vis the EFCC Act, as well as 2 decisions of our court, of course, sentiments apart, as the law stands today, Section 171 of the Constitution takes precedence over any other consideration.
So what does this mean? After they send his name, thereby activating, as Abu said there, Section 2 of the EFCC Act. So does that then mean that...
No, I think it was sent in error.
Yeah, okay.
I think it was sent in error.
Yes, but having sent it, did they not activate that part? And if they did,
no.
And being rejected, does it deactivate it?
No. It's not about activation of Section 2. Whereas this man is acting, the president says, I'm desirous to have him confirmed by the Senate. Please, I am asking you to confirm his appointment as executive chairman of EFCC. The Senate says no. That has not in any way obliterated his letter of appointment as acting chairman of EFCC. The two are different. Acting capacity, substantive capacity. The president or the Senate did not say, oh, because, or the law does not say, once somebody is acting, has his nomination sent to the Senate for confirmation, he shall cease to act. No, that's not the law.
So what do you think was the intention of the drafters of the act then? Is it not to ensure that it's not a unilateral decision, the confirmation of the chairman by the
clearly
president?
That was the intention. But you see, if it had been like Section 218 of the Constitution that states that the appointment, promotion, and discipline of members of the armed forces, including service chiefs, shall be in accordance with a law made by the National Assembly, in this case, the Armed Forces Act, you cannot quarrel with confirmation, because the Armed Forces Act, Section 18, provides for confirmation, not just by the Senate, but by both chambers of the National Assembly. But you know what happens in a case like this? It's for us to go back to the drawing table, particularly the National Assembly. In view of this lacuna, what do we do when we are going to amend the Constitution next time? That's it. That's the only answer. By simply adding a proviso, as you have in Section 218, with respect to the appointment of service chiefs. If the Constitution also says, subject to the provision of the EFCC Act, or a law made by the National Assembly for EFCC. And it's not limited to EFCC. It applies to all extra ministerial departments, like the ICPC, Code of Conduct Bureau, and the rest of them.